podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Just how much daylight robbery are United going to get away with this season, Paul? How are you doing?
I'm really good, thanks. We're recording about 20 minutes after full time in the Southampton game, so I am full of the festive joys. 'Tis the season for daylight robbery or evening time robbery, so it would appear. The police do say when the darker nights draw in, start to be more mindful, leave some lights on and stuff like that. Southampton did not pay any attention to the thieves that were operating in their area.
Yeah, well, the lights were on. Unfortunately, no one in Manchester United's defence was home for much of that game. I've hardly seen the United defensive performance as chaotic as that, except for the last time they played a back three, and maybe the time before that they played a back three. So this is part of the philosophy, right?
There was a moment in the first half when Smalling was still on, where there was just this little moment where they just slightly reshaped themselves, and there was somebody covering their space really nicely. And I was thinking, I was about to tweet, "Oh, that's quite good. I feel like that's sort of the philosophy." But that was 1 4-second period in the 90 minutes of catastrophic mess. I mean, I have to say, I am a very big Van Gaal fan, and I think going to 3 at the back was an enormous mistake in this game. I mean, I just, as soon as the lineup was announced, your head drops a bit, and it's like, oh, this is not going to work. Because it isn't even the defensive organisation. It's like trying to get the ball from the back to the front when we play 3 at the back. They just, I don't know what it does to them, but they just don't know what to do with the ball, do they?
Yeah, well, it was unfortunate for Herrera, who's excellent against Stoke, that he wasn't out of the side, and I think that contributed a lot to United's lack of cohesion. Anyway, look, we jump right into that because that's fresh in our minds. But let's step back a week, shall we? Because United played Stoke City last weekend and were pretty good for, 70 minutes-ish? About?
Yeah, that's about what I'd say. Just because I know you've travelled the world, but it wasn't actually last weekend. It was a Tuesday night game under the lights at Old Trafford. Felt positively romantic, that did. Such a distant memory that we used to do that on a fairly regular basis. But yeah, I mean, I thought actually, by the end, it was a bit of a nightmare, that game, and could very, very easily have gone the other way. And I don't know, you couldn't really say Stoke fully did not deserve to get anything out of that game, because United, they weren't great, let's face it. They were not great in that game. But a fine-headed goal from Marouane Fellaini, that's always nice to see, isn't it?
The only kind of goal, isn't it? Well, no.
I know that's unfair. A wonder goal against Fulham. Yeah. No, West Brom. So, Fulham aren't even in the Premier League.
I mean, a lot of the trouble with the United performances this season has been this phenomenon of it dropping off after 60 or 70 minutes, and that came again against Stoke, and in the end Stoke had 2 or 3 really good chances in the last few minutes of the game, and Mark Hughes moaned afterwards about Stoke not equalising, and there's a good argument to say he probably deserved it, at least on chances created right at the end there. Odd performance in the end from United, sort of this, what would you call the formation, sort of 4-3 with Herrera just in front of the 3 and Wilson and Van Persie up front. I mean, it's a slightly jumble of a formation in comparison to the sort of diamond that's been in play sometimes, or 3 or whatever, It's not going to formations again. It's like a set of telephone numbers at the moment, isn't it? So, it just didn't feel quite as cohesive as it was against Hull the week before, when United had, 97 and a bit possession.
Yeah, it was 77, wasn't it, in that game? And the Stoke game, it was still 64.5% possession, so it was still not like United, relinquished much of the possession, and a lot of that in the attacking third, but all of that in the first 2/3 of the game, essentially. That goal was funny when Rocco tried to pretend his hair had scored the goal. He's got that slightly 1950s quiff thing going on. I reckon he definitely made hair contact with the ball, but clearly that doesn't count.
I don't think that counts now. His girlfriend tweeted, his wife tweeted afterwards or Instagrammed. Girlfriend, wife.
Tweeted or Instagrammed.
Tweet or Instagrammed, yeah, one of these, may have been on the internet.
Someone that knows Marcus Rocco put something on the internet.
His barber's milkman's friend said that he scored a goal in it. So his girlfriend Instagrammed a picture of what looks like the ball on his head, although I think perspective may have played a part in that picture. I'm not sure he got anywhere near it, but he certainly claimed it afterwards.
Yeah, he did. And, it was a non-terrible performance by United, but there was definitely a lack of clinicalness.
Nothing like damning and faint praise there.
Quite, non-terrible, I think, is a reasonable description of it. And once again, De Gea with a remarkable save at the end to keep United in it, but then also Ashley Young with that brilliant goal line clearance. So vital defensive intervention from the much maligned Ashley Young, who was all right again against Southampton, I thought.
Right, yeah, Young had a good game, I thought, at left back against Stoke. I mean, you wouldn't exactly call this a position that he's likely to make his own, but he's done all right there. Left back and left wing back have probably brought his best performances this season from Young. It's all relative, isn't it? But still, in fact, we'll come and talk about the chaos in defence against Southampton. I thought United's defence for that first 70 minutes or so was pretty solid. I thought all of them did well. Valencia, pretty safe defensively. Smalling maybe had his best game of the season in there. He's actually been very good post Manchester City red card, hasn't he?
Until the biscuits got him in the groin department today.
Yeah, well, yeah. Biscuits got him in the groin. You'll have to explain that one to me.
He's made out of biscuits, and the bit of his biscuits that is his groin. This is unpleasant. But anyway, that all fell apart, so he's now going to be out for 6 weeks or whatever.
Wonderful.
I've no idea how long he's actually
going to be out for. We know from the internet that you can just make up any number, and it's true. So,
yeah.
Smalling is on death's door, death by Jaffa Cake, I think you're saying there. He was pretty good against Stoke. In fact, United did okay defensively, I think, for the most part of that game. It's just that flurry of chances near the end where, as you say, De Gea with a fine stop to keep United in it, and then Ashley Young with that clearance. It all kind of seemed to be improbable in the end, didn't it? But, United just grabbed that victory, and it seems to be a theme in recent weeks, doesn't it? United snatching victory away from what seems like something less.
Absolutely. That game was the very ever-living embodiment of the David Moyes' side would have conceded that goal. There's no way Moyes doesn't walk away from that game not having lost it 3-2. We've got a definite lucky general vibe going on at the moment. And hopefully that will continue to serve as well, but at some point we're going to have to stop relying on getting ridiculously lucky. I'll tell you what though, we had 10 attempts on goal in the Stoke game, which is, about 15 more than we had against Southampton, where it was, I believe, -3 attempts on goal.
Well, yeah, certainly some odd numbers going around. I mean, the thing about Van Gaal being lucky, there's two ways of looking at this, isn't there? There's one, when United actually start playing well, then, boy, do we have a good side? Maybe it's a lot better than people think. That's one. Maybe that's the optimistic view. The other is we can't keep playing like this and keep getting these results. So at some point, maybe it's actually when we play someone good. Because if you look at Southampton's results in the last few games, and Arsenal's results, and Stoke's results, and Hull City's results, it might all unravel.
Stoke did beat Arsenal, of course.
Yeah, well, look at Arsenal's results.
I was writing something this week and I had opportunity to look back at the 2012-13 season, at the game against Newcastle at Christmas when we were losing 3 times in that game and eventually won 4-3 with the Chicharito winner. And I was remembering the podcast and you saying, we can't keep doing this. At some point, the luck's going to run out. And what Fergie did was totally transformed us into a very boring, functional team for the rest of the season. I wonder if that's going to happen at some point here. I mentioned we can't really talk about that Stoke game without talking about young James Wilson, who got his first, not his first start for United because he started under Ryan Giggs, didn't he, in that Hull game. But he played quite well, I thought. There was a couple of really great electric runs, and there was the one where he could have slid in Van Persie, but instead he went to whip in a shot at the kind of near post. And I mean, you could say that Van Persie would have had an easier chance than him, but you want your strikers to back themselves in that position, don't you?
You do, certainly, although Although, I mean, he's gone on a 60-yard run. It was a brilliant run in its pace and control with the ball, and absolutely he's got the confidence to have a go. But when you're Van Persie standing there in miles of space and you're basically going to have an open goal, you're thinking, give us a pass, son. So, maybe a lack of maturity there. Who knows? But, he's just totally electric, Wilson. He does this every time he's played for the reserves. It's not just that his pace is absolutely immense, so you can play the ball over the top or through the middle, and it forces defenders to play deeper, but he's got great close control, and he's a fine finisher as well with all of that. So, I think he's got a really positive future, and everything you saw in that game points to that, doesn't it? He won't play all the games this season. United have got a lot of quality up front, obviously, at least on paper, if not always in practice at the moment. So, he's going to be eased into the team, I suppose, and next season will be quite a big one for him, I suspect.
I thought Juan Mata had a pretty good game as well, in that he was the player most involved in United's attacking play in the final third, which, when we come on to the Southampton game, perhaps he did not have such a good game.
So Mata and Herrera were interesting against Stoke because, I wasn't sure which one was the playmaker most of the time. Mata came off the left a lot, didn't he? And Herrera looked more central at times, but I thought they were both excellent. And, Mata really involved. It's just the kind of performance you want from him, where, a lot of the players going through him, he gets a lot of touches and he's an influence. And, as you say, it's the kind of thing that's frustrating about him, because we know how talented he is, what he can bring in terms of goals and creativity, and you just want him to do it every single week, and it doesn't happen.
And there are clearly some games which don't suit him very well, and some people might have thought that Stoke would be one of those games, but that wasn't the case. What did you make of Stoke and their performance?
As has been the case this season, they are not a brilliant side. They're in this kind of transitionary period in terms of style. Hughes is trying to get them to play a better style of football, more expansive style of football. But they haven't half got a lot of competitors in that side, and I don't think that's a cliche. They, a lot of players, perhaps Stephen Ireland accepted, who are prepared to put in both work and effort off the ball. Walters didn't do that. He didn't play. Sorry, he's the kind of archetypal Stoke player, I suppose. So I thought they tried, and they didn't really produce a lot until the end of the game. And United were in control for most of the game. And isn't that what you expect of a team of Stoke's sort of status and quality coming to Old Trafford?
Yeah, absolutely, and just fantastic to get those 3 points as well, wasn't it? It was like, just at the end, it felt such a relief and such a kind of cool thing, because that put us on 4 wins on the bounce and sort of took the pressure off the Southampton game in a way, because a draw wouldn't have been the end of the world against Southampton after that run of form, although it's obviously amazing that we won it and now we're up to third in the league, where we totally deserve to be 100% on merit.
Absolutely, yeah, no probs.
Yeah.
So one thing we should mention before we move on to the Southampton game, Nzondi's goal.
Oh,
pick that one. I mean, you've got to be a bit special to beat De Gea these days, and that was a bit special.
It was. He had a lot of room, but he used it to tremendous effect. Definitely the goal of the game, wasn't it?
Indeed. What you saying? Marcus Rocco's deft flick wasn't perfection.
Oh, and Michael Carrick's deft leave his man completely alone wasn't perfection either.
Carrick couldn't do that, would he?
Doesn't sound like him to me.
Yeah. So Southampton. And, I'm trying to think of a word that is more chaotic than omnishambles. It's the one we come back to a fair bit on this show, isn't it? What's more chaotic? What is a cluster of omnishambles,
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm just repeating the word over and again because I can't think of anything productive to say about that game. I mean, the Arsenal game was hilarious. This wasn't that funny for quite a lot of it. It got funny, finally, when Van Persie scored his second goal. The punchline paid off. But, cripes, from the moment we saw the three at the back, just everything that you thought would happen, happened. Except, apparently Southampton are really terrible.
Arsenal was just completely different. That was amusing because... You know what, United have done a few smash and grabs at Arsenal over the years, playing on the break and scoring. That was different because they were pretty dominant, and United really did steal it, but it just made it all the more funnier. It's like being a rabbit in the headlights, there's a big truck coming at you, and somehow it just rides straight over you instead of squashing you. And I was just going, how could United win this game? How? It makes no sense. I mean, everyone was all over the place. I mean, Smalling, before he did himself, was all over the place. Rojo kept giving the ball away. McNair, he had a McMahon, didn't he?
Sorry. Poor lad.
Yeah, no,
he did, though.
It's totally
it was
brutal, but he was all over the place positionally, and then, of course, the things that's really visible is the fact that he just kept giving the ball to the opposition. Carrick was letting runners past him quite a few occasions, not least for Southampton's goal. Mata completely anonymous. Young, actually, arguably United's best player, right?
Apart from Van Persie, who I think was exceptional.
Apart from Van Persie, he was very good, not just the goals.
No.
Valencia, again, couldn't really get into the game. Fellaini, he just kept giving the ball away, and when he wasn't giving the ball away, he was elbowing people. And Rooney was just one of those games where he was completely anonymous again, and, so you're like, oh, well, how he scores goals in bursts, and he has great form in bursts, and it normally lasts about 10 games. Yeah, it lasted 6 on this occasion.
Four games.
Four United games, yeah.
No, it was the 2 England games, and then Arsenal and Hull. And that was it. And then he got injured at the end of the whole game.
No, that's right. That's fair enough, yeah. And then Van Persie, who aside from, two very well-taken goals, actually did very well. His movement was good. He was good off the ball, wasn't he? He was, making the right layoffs into wide positions. It looked like he got a bit of his zip back.
That's Van Persie's best performance of the season by miles and miles and miles. It's the reverse curse of the Rantcast. At Barca Jim, he didn't know anything about the reverse curse of the Rantcast because he's a recent listener, and that's more of an early days of the Rantcast thing. But we used to talk about this all the time. Whenever we slate a player, we slate Rooney, and then suddenly, boom, he's in form. And then we turn out ire on Van Persie, he comes back to life. So what Barca Jim has requested is that we said there's no way that he's going to have any success with the ladies at all over the Christmas season, which...
No chance, mate. Yeah. Sorry, mate. A podcast cannot help you with the ladies. I mean, we could appeal to the greater good of female kind. Poor old Barca Jim, he's not been laid in years. He doesn't smell of desperation at all. Help Barca Jim help himself this Christmas.
So the thing about Van Persie's performance, as you say, like his hold-up play was back to life. He was doing that thing where 2 defenders are around him and he ends up with the ball on the other side of the defenders. 4 completed take-ons out of his 4 attempts, which, whenever you cite stats, they're only ever to back up the point. They're never to make the key point, right? The key point was it just looked like he had a very fine game. And the 2 goals, both very, very well taken. I thought he got a little bit... obviously, he got lucky with the assist from the Southampton defenders. It did kind of look like they were just like, oh, we better give them one. They're really useless. This is going to be no fun if we don't get them a goal first. But I thought Van Persie was actually quite lucky to get that through the keeper's legs because the keeper had to kind of stretch his leg in order for the ball to go under it.
Yeah, he didn't hit it cleanly, or at least he didn't hit it with any kind of power, but, that helped, actually. I think he hit it really cleanly. It's going straight at the keeper. So, I think he's done all right. He was sharp. Yeah. He got onto that ball in a way that perhaps he wouldn't have done, a few games ago or any time over the last 18 months, in fact. But the second, as I think you were going to say, really, really good finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, fantastic. Maybe keeper should have done better, but I think it was exceptional. A word about Van Gaal's substitutions in that game. The first one forced. I was very terrified to see Johnny Evans. As you know, I rate Johnny Evans perhaps higher than you do, but Johnny Evans coming back from injury after he was not exactly brilliant before he was injured, and Smalling has been really solid for a bunch of games in a row. So sad to see him hobble off again, although predictable, as you'll always say. But then the substitution very early on, having used the substitution through injury, to make a tactical substitution so early was actually very brave of Van Gaal, and a kind of classic, Moyes would never have done that type move. And it was definitely the right move. I was really surprised. I think everyone was surprised to see Carrick drop back into the back 3 rather than the full restructure that many thought was coming and probably hoped was coming. But yeah, poor old McNair. I mean, definitely not going to heap too much criticism on the young man. This is the first time he's had a bad game, and he's played in some very difficult situations. So,
We'll find out how much Van Gaal put stock in that. I mean, after Blackett had that mare at Leicester, he didn't play for a while, did he? So we'll see if McNair's in the team. He might have to be if Smalling's injured, of course. It kind of depends on the formation against Liverpool next weekend. I'm not sure from week to week whether it's going to be back 3, 5, 4 or 2 or whatever it was.
Well, he hasn't gone to the back 3 at home, and I still can't quite see him doing that, especially given how woeful the performance was.
Yeah, well, you'd hope so, and indeed how woeful Liverpool are just every week. So we'll get onto that in a bit. The tale of woe. We haven't quite finished this tale of woe. In fact, it hasn't ended as a tale of woe, has it? I mean, the fact is...
I said.
Van Persie scores with 20 minutes to go, and United got better after that. I thought, it's true. And,
right.
Actually a measure of control. Interesting that Rooney dropped into the left-hand side to give Young some protection. Van Persie was pretty much up front on his own after that. And, United just looked a little more solid, played on the break. There are a few opportunities that Rooney could have used to better effect. I think he ran with the ball and ran out of steam a couple of times. Interesting, actually. One particular occasion, I think with about, 5-6 minutes to go, he's sprinting at 3 Southampton defenders, looks like classic Rooney of old. Then he stops, turns and passes it back to Ander Herrera, who's absolutely nowhere near the ball, or the ball was nowhere near Ander Herrera. And the Spaniard gets tackled, and you're like, there's no way Rooney at 18 would have done that. No way. He would have been absolutely bursting a lung to beat those defenders or take it into the corner.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Rooney's defence, maybe he's back sooner than he would have been under ideal circumstances from the knock he got against Hull. And he did look short of sharpness and fitness, and maybe that will come back and the performances will come back quicker than they have recently. And the one thing also to say in Rooney's defence, we wax lyrical about Van Persie's finish, but that was a beautiful free kick. So well done, Rooney, for that, but not so much for the rest of it, which was a bit unfortunate. Mata's performance, I said on Twitter, the thing you can say for Mata is that he's hardly given the ball away, and everyone went, that's because he's never had it. Basically, my mention was full of that sentence, with varying degrees of swear words in, I'm assuming, that voice. But actually, he made more passes than any other United player up to the time he went off. Rocco just pipped him by the end, but he hardly gave the ball away. But you look at his pass map and it really does look like, it took me, I did 3 checks to see which way United was supposed to be going on the pass map, because everything went backwards, but everything.
Yeah, true. Matt's problem, I think, is where was he playing, right? So he wasn't playing at classic number 10 by any means. He was deeper than that and kind of, felt like he drifted to the left-hand side. Where was Rooney playing? Was he playing at classic number 10? Was he playing up front? He also drifted to the left-hand side. So it felt like there was a lack of cohesion. I mean, the biggest problem, of course, is that United was such a mess at the back and had such trouble transitioning from back to front that Mata, didn't feel like he was getting the ball in the right kind of positions. I actually haven't seen the heat map, but I would suspect he was a lot deeper than is typical for a number 10. Just watching the game, with my eyes, not with all this fancy technology malarkey. And, it just doesn't feel like he's in those classic number 10 positions where he can influence the game.
No, Rooney and Van Persie, in the player influence map, Rooney and Van Persie are almost level with each other, so very much playing as 2 strikers, and Mata is bang smack in the centre circle. On that player
I prefer the heat maps myself. I think that gives a better picture of...
Let's have a nerd off.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. See, Barca Jim, that's what gets you girls at parties, mate.
Barca Jim was disgusted when I met him in real life, and me and Alwyn started sharing very specific points. He said, you've gone full anorak far too early there. Talking of anorak and numbers, Manchester United with 3 attempts on goal during that match, the fewest that Manchester United have ever attempted since Opta began collecting that stat 11 years ago. Southampton had 15 shots. It is one of those games that you play in Football Manager and go, it's like you get to the Champions League final and you've worked, like your little lads have worked all season for it, and then they absolutely hammer Real Madrid in the final, but Real Madrid score the 2 goals on the break, But in real life,
I can't even say we scored the 2 goals on the break either. It was a set piece and a bit of a fluke defensive error. So, but that
best game ever.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, if that sums up United's attack and the absolute horror show of the back three sums up United's defence. If you took the goals out of that game and said, guess who won that game, it'd be hard to predict a 2-1 victory for United. But, it is. And you know what? The stat that counts, 3 points for United. And
Absolutely.
United are third. It's hardly credulous, given some of the performances this season, that United are up to third. And of course, it's a long way behind Chelsea, and maybe that's the more important barometer of United's quality this season. And maybe there's a lot of mediocrity in the Premier League, full stop. But third place.
It's really interesting because in the summer, it felt like the Premier League had really strengthened. With some of the players that came in versus come out. There's, since Ronaldo left and Bale left, there's been this sort of sense of decline. But, this summer, Alexis came, Di Maria came, Falcao came. It felt like, Costa, Fabregas, there was a big influx of talent into the Premier League. I suppose Suarez left. That was the one big talent leaving. But generally, it's been a terrible stand. You say we're a long way behind Chelsea. We're 8 points behind Chelsea. We've definitely been 8 points behind at this stage of the season and won the league before. I'm not saying that's what's likely to happen, but, we are not as far behind Chelsea as you would think we would be at this stage.
Yes, I mean, I suppose Chelsea's defeat at the weekend certainly aids that one. That was a very good weekend for United, wasn't it? Apart from City's victory, I suppose.
And West Ham's.
Yeah, I kind of forget them as a... do we think they're a force... about to take a place in the Champions League next season?
The thing is, right, of course, Arsenal are going to end up putting together a run of form and coming fourth. You just assume that's going to happen. But at some point, it's not going to work anymore for Arsenal, surely. And they really do look atrocious, so, anyway.
So this week was Manchester United's party, and I thought the most interesting thing about that, Louis van Gaal and wife attended. That's not supposed to happen, is it? It's players' party. And the thing he said afterwards, that he was impressed with United's cohesion. And I'm assuming that's on the dance floor, because there was some kind of, dance off or something like that, which Van Gaal won because, he's an entertainer coach.
Yes, as you said, cohesion on the dance floor rather than on the football pitch, clearly. But there does seem to be good team spirit. You can sort of see that there's people that like each other in that team, isn't there?
Yeah, they appear to be playing for each other, which they certainly didn't do under Moyes. Moyes, he's come up a few times in this conversation, and indeed this week as well. So 4 games into his Real Sociedad experiment. Can we call it an experiment? Kind of is. He got smashed, or Real Sociedad got smashed 4-0 at Villarreal. A game...
1, 2, 3, 4, as he would say himself.
Yes, rather unfortunate. Rather a lot of crosses and long balls from his team in that game.
I saw you tweet this. It was only 20 crosses. That's not that many crosses.
Yeah, a lot of long balls, 89 long balls.
Very a lot of long balls.
Hoof it Moisey. I mean, look, the overall record is 1 victory, 2 draws and 1 loss, and for a team, battling relegation, that's actually not too bad, right? If they pick up 5 points out of every 4 games, they will be just about all right, I would assume, from now until the end of the season. But there you go, that's Moyes' update.
Can we stop doing these? Because I don't ever want to think about him again as long as I live.
We'll make it shorter, we'll call it Moyes' date.
Okay, that's fine. You've talked me into it now. And Moyes' Day, that's what Zaha went on, right?
God, he's still alive.
Oh, yeah, he is. He nearly scored a goal for Crystal Palace.
Very good. Good one, young man.
United, 6 points from 6. It's all rosy, right? We just batter everyone in sight now. We just win. It's just the new United way. You got a football match. Oh, yeah, all right. United will win that. It's just like old times.
Yeah, five in a row. That's... That hasn't happened for 2 years or something like that, I heard someone say, and that's a measure of form in one way or another, isn't it? I think in those 5 games, not a lot of fantastic performance. I mean, Hull maybe, and that's about it. But momentum is momentum, right?
Absolutely. And if you look at those games, Crystal Palace, you definitely can't say we were lucky to win that because we completely dominated that and just lacked cutting edge. Arsenal, yeah, we were definitely lucky that they didn't do something more. But then actually in the second half, we were better than them. Hull, we were brilliant, but Hull were terrible. Stoke, we were really good for 60 minutes, or pretty good for 60 minutes. It's only really Southampton where we were a colossal joke, you know.
So, before we get on to Liverpool, we have a couple of updates. You wanted to give an update on a competition winner, or two.
Yes, we should have done this last week. The Cellar Key contest to win a meal for two at a new restaurant in Chorlton called the Cellar Key is won by @Wormito, who is a long-time friend of the show and brilliantly, correctly identified that Robin Van Persie was the man who tipped £50 on the £100 bill, and Patrice Evra was the man who tipped £5 on the £100 bill.
Who would have thought that Evra's a tightwad?
Not you, Ed. Not you.
Not me, no. I was certain it would have been Paddy that wow. I have to reassess his whole time at Old Trafford now as a result of that.
The thing is, apparently it was always lovely to everyone, and also he's got about 400 siblings. So, you know, Patrice Evra's money has got to go a long way. So, yeah.
But he's got a lot of money, Paul.
Yeah, that's true. But, you know, there's a lot of people relying on that money. So I give him a free pass on that one.
He should have done an Anderson and gone to McDonald's.
He should. Yeah, so that's congratulations to Wormito. Now, this is the thing that was a lovely prize to be able to give away, but I'm super excited about the next prize just because I really love this thing. We're giving away a big mug by Urban Colours, who you can follow on Twitter @UrbanColours. Made out of fine bone china, designed in Manchester, there you go. And they are decorated, fired and glazed by the Staffordshire Heritage in Stoke-on-Trent. It's a really, really beautiful print of Old Trafford, drawn from the Salford Quays. They're based on a sold-out print, but there are 60 of those mugs left, and they're at the Albert Square Markets in Manchester, directly behind the Macaroon Man. You can find them, and they're really lovely. So we would like to give away a mug, and with that we should come up with a thematically appropriate prize. Who is the biggest mug you've ever sat near at Old Trafford? What is the most muggish statement any mug has ever mugged during Old Trafford? And as I said last week, the chap sitting behind me at the Hull game was in with a shout for that. So yeah, really lovely mug. And so I'll put pictures of those on Twitter.
Very nice. We were also giving away a T-shirt, except I've been too lazy and haven't picked a winner yet. So I will do, and I'll let everyone know on Twitter. And a couple of you will have a couple of T-shirts. So it's first prize is a very nice Cantona T-shirt. Booby prize is a Rooney T-shirt.
I'm trying really hard to be positive about Rooney in the way I feel about him, because I don't like holding grudges. But yeah. And I did this thing where I looked at all the seasons he's ever played for United. He's never had a bad season. Not unequivocally bad. He's had seasons where lots of bad things have happened. But he's always scored goals every season.
But you know what? I don't think that is the narrative of Rooney's career. I don't think anyone can sensibly argue that he's had a bad career. I think the narrative for me is potentially a world-class player who didn't reach his full potential. Who's put up brilliant numbers, but whose inconsistencies has stopped him reaching that very pinnacle in terms of his relative merits against other players of his generation, and much of that is down to his own performance, and has ruined some of the perception of him by requesting on transfer twice and being a fat scass. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with the last bit of that.
No, he definitely asked for 2 transfers.
Oh, you cut out the last bit of it, right?
No.
But yeah, that you're not wrong, but the flip side of that is going to end his career as United and England's top scorer, and having won the Champions League and umpteen league winners' medals and all that malarkey. So completely,
and that narrative... The one I described, I'm sure will get lost in time amid the sort of history books that will show him as the top ever goal scorer for United and England, and massive award winner, of course.
Yeah, and but there was an interesting thing, because I can't remember whether it was 04, 05 or 05, 06. I think the first one of those. But Rooney and Ronaldo scored almost exactly the same number of goals. They scored 20 goals each. 23 goals each, I think. And Rooney got 14 assists and Ronaldo got 23 assists. So really close in those numbers. Those numbers aren't quite right, but it's something like that. And at that point, they look really equal. And in a way, I think Rooney is poorly served by existing at the same time as Ronaldo and having come through at the same time as the two of them, because the barometer for him becomes completely unrealistic at that point.
But it doesn't become unrealistic. I mean, that's my frustration with him, right? So Ronaldo scored a record-breaking number of hat-tricks this week, a 23rd hat-trick. He's got 200 goals in 178 appearances for Real Madrid, something like that. Unbelievable stats. He left United and scored 42 goals and then 26 goals in his last two seasons. That last season, somewhat injury disrupted, and he just went up from there, right? But at their respective ages, Ronaldo at 17, Rooney at 17, there wasn't any difference in quality, right? The difference has been the application. So Ronaldo has managed to keep growing his ability through real application in the gym and on the training pitch and practice and professionalism like you wouldn't believe. This isn't luck. For all the kind of accusations of vanity, this is one of the hardest working professionals that's ever lived, right? Rooney has not done the same thing. And I think, he has suffered in a way...
No.
That's my frustration. Brilliant career, all these trophies, all these goals. And at 17, 18... he was as good as anybody on the planet at that age. And he should have gone up from there.
The thing is, I don't fundamentally disagree with you. So the first one is mild and debatable, and it's that Ronaldo went to Real Madrid, which is like cheating, essentially. But as we've had this discussion before, and you quite rightly said that earn that kind of highest level thing. Anyway, the second thing is, I said that the comparison to Ronaldo serves him really poorly. And one of the things that Ferguson said in his book, one of the actual good things that he said in his book, is that work rate is a talent too. And Ronaldo's level of application is genuinely almost unmatched. It's superhuman application. There are only a handful of professionals ever, like Ryan Giggs, maybe Zanetti. It's a really tiny number of people that are simply that professional. Maybe Gary Neville, you could argue, is on that level too, but just way, way down in terms of the baseline of natural talent. So that is tough on Rooney. But it's undeniable that they were at the same level and then they very much aren't anymore.
So I think the natural talent they had, when they got to an age of, less than total maturity, 17, 18 or whatever, was about equal. And one player has made more of his career than the other. That sounds like real nitpicking, doesn't it? In the big context of Rooney, England's top goal scorer, United's top goal scorer. Well, at least he will be in very short order. It sounds like nitpicking, but I'm not sure it is. I think when a lot of United fans assess Rooney, they'll have a think about how many wonderful performances there were as a percentage of his overall base of performances. And I just feel a lot of meh in there. A lot of great numbers, not always awesome performances, and this thing about bursty performances and bursty goals is very true, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and it's true with most footballers, right? That's the thing. It's the people that don't do that, the people that don't have patches, are the exception and not the rule.
Yeah, well, okay, let's move on from this anyway. We like to have a long debate, totally off the main topic. One final thing. I have to go back to the Southampton game, just for a little thing. Talking about players having patchy form. Marouane Fellaini has had patchy form. He was good for 4 games. He returned. Order has been restored to the force. Fellaini is once again rubbish.
The thing is, though, in that game, once Carrick dropped into defence, Fellaini was playing at that base of United's midfield where he was so terrible under Moyes. So it was kind of to be expected, wasn't it? He so bad, so very, very bad.
At one point, I took to Googling for giraffe on ice, thinking I'd find a funny gif. I didn't, but that was Marouane Fellaini.
At Badman Bugty asked this before the game, saying, "Yo, who would win a rap battle between Fellaini or McNair?" The thing is, I think McNair would go to the Paddy McNair from Ballyclare well too many times. And I think Fellaini might come up with a few more interesting rhymes. And Fellaini could also do it in multiple languages. So I reckon that both of them had really terrible games, but I reckon Fellaini would just edge it. And
not having that. McNair speaks English and Northern Irish.
At Mr. Adam_Davies says, how many trainer coaches does it take to change a light bulb? Which I've only really read out as an excuse to do the accent, but also to tell the story that was doing the rounds before the Southampton game of the Ronald Koeman, Louis van Gaal beef. because light bulbs are an important fixture in a house. Do you know this story, Ed? The Ronald Koeman and Louis van Gaal had a massive falling out at Ajax, and Koeman got van Gaal sacked. So then Koeman buys this house on a lovely plot of land
in the Algarve, in Portugal. Yep.
And Louis rocks up going, Algarve, Louis van Gaal more like, builds a bigger house that Koeman could see from his front garden. Gloriously, magnificently petty. So I'm not sure how many trainer coaches it takes to change a light bulb, but to build an entire house just to spite someone only takes one, apparently.
Yeah, he said one stage after that sacking, I did, like everyone, I did a lot of reading about this. It seemed to be the dominant story, didn't it, before the game, not about, fourth place versus fifth place or whatever it was, but Van Gaal versus Koeman, and said after that falling out they'd never have dinner with him again, and they was far too busy to have a drink with him after the game, even though he'd heard about this tradition. So yeah, I'm not sure the beef has really settled just yet.
It hasn't, although incidentally Roy Keane this week did say he would go for a cup of tea with Alex Ferguson if he got an apology, which is basically the same as saying he won't go for a cup of tea with Alex Ferguson.
That is never going to happen.
At 987_Sean, has Tony V ever taken a throw in that isn't a foul throw? No, never. He's never done it.
Has he ever put a cross in that? Hasn't it the first man?
Yeah, for the entirety of 2011 or whenever it was. If this was a normal season, asks at Eddie Rose 13, where Chelsea weren't the only team trying, what position would United be in? I think we'd be third, I think we might have been the third best team this season in the league.
Apparently that's the case, yeah.
Yeah. What's Dutch for I don't understand, asks the Dodo. It's I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then, the FA Cup draw at Chris E_316 says Accrington Stanley or Yeovil. Who are they? You think that Milkad kid was ever good enough for them? That Milkad kid currently in a TV series called Trolleyed, which I'd never heard of, but Fino76 knows him.
The other famous football ad years ago was the McDonald's ad with Scott Parker, right?
Yes.
So I'm disappointed in the Accrington Stanley kid that he didn't.
But he didn't
become a Scott Parker.
He just drank milk, though. He didn't play football. It was an advert for milk, right?
Yeah, but, he was hoping to be a footballer.
Yeah, maybe so. But instead he was an actor. He obviously got the bug, unlike Ian Rush, who continued to be a footballer. But yeah, we've got Accrington Stanley or Yeovil away. It's amazing. We didn't get a Premier League team at home, thus costing all the season ticket holders tons of money for a game they could see anyway. Those are going to be some sought-after away tickets, I would imagine.
When's the last time United played a lower division team in the FA Cup and actually played well? Because there's been some stinker of performances recently.
Oh, Crawley Town, remember that one? The Darren Gibson special.
Wasn't it after that game we all came out thinking that Bebe was good? No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't that game.
Ravel Morrison might have had a little cameo in that.
He did. Yeah, I don't know. I can't help thinking Van Gaal's going to make Falcao play in it because he can't play him in the reserves as he would like to, because it turns out we had this massive debate about his philosophy, and this week he made it very clear. He said a player coming back from injury has to play in the second team first. That's my philosophy, but I can't do it because we've got too many injuries. So there you go. He's been avert. It's nothing to do with formation. It's just when you're coming back from injury, he's been talked about his philosophy so much, and it was so simple all along.
I know. I'm glad he clarified that one, because we almost had a falling out over that one, and it was nearly the end of the Rantcast, let me tell you.
No, my philosophy is it's okay to agree to disagree.
Very good. For sure.
For sure. Right. Oh, talking of falling out, it's a game against our enemies, Liverpool.
Dirty Scouse.
I don't like it when you go all like this.
Are you feeding the Scousers this weekend,
so
this Christmas?
Horrible and classist and stupid and it's based on terrible unemployment wrought by the evils of Thatcherism, and yet what do United fans do? All suffered from it too. Oh yeah, let's mock economic deprivation because it's that time of year, lads. Depressing. I know I'm in a minority of about 3 on this particular subject, but that's the end of my soapbox. My least favourite fixture of the season's not the case for you, is it, Ed?
Well, poverty is a terrible thing, Paul. I definitely agree with you there. But the thing is, you have to, even if you're poor, you have to make decisions and be responsible for your own decisions. And there's no forgiving eating rats in a council house. Just none.
It's just unacceptable. It's just inhumane. Anyway.
Well, yeah. I don't know if humane is the right thing, really, because they're rats. But, I get your point. It's very true. Very true. I thoroughly enjoy the Liverpool fixture. When banter doesn't cross the line into unacceptable mocking of deaths on either side or using that as a stick to beat each other with. And I hope it won't cross that line this weekend.
I bet you £1 million, billion, trillion pounds it definitely will.
You've got to be able to back that up with some kind of asset, Paul. And £1 million, billion, trillion pounds is something you can't back up.
I can't.
No, right, good.
No, it would be a much, much, much smaller number than that.
Very good. Well, yeah, I'm absolutely certain there will be reports, and I'm sure there will be a few idiots singing things that they really shouldn't do on both sides. Unfortunately, we always get it. On the pitch, we are playing a team in Liverpool who are pretty dire. I mean, everyone said last season, it's really interesting, isn't it, that without Suarez, Liverpool would be mediocre. Turns out that everyone was right.
Yeah, except me, right? At the beginning of this season. Oh, yeah, no, Ed, I think Liverpool will be all right. I think they've signed really well. I think they've added some depth to their squad. Nope.
Yeah.
You said, no, I think they're going to be rubbish because they've lost X million goals from their team.
Yeah, that's a neat summary of a longer discussion, I suppose. Yeah, well, look, they haven't been able to replace those goals. They actually haven't been able to replace the all-round quality and all those players that come in really haven't performed in the way that Brendan Rodgers would have wanted to. So it's been a real mess of a season for them. Steven Gerrard's massive fall from grace has been quite amusing to watch.
Did you say something about Steven Gerrard and falling?
I did. Yeah, I slipped up there. I promised I wouldn't say anything about that.
It's just going to be 90 minutes of that, isn't it? That's what it's going to be.
Of course.
Which is fine. That I don't have any problem with. They have been terrible. Another 0-0 home draw for them. Was it the Ludogorets game that it was 2-2 and afterwards Lambert and what's his name, Brendan Rodgers, both saying in the press conference afterwards, this is a turning point, this is a great vindication of our season. It's like, you've just drawn 2-2 with a team I've literally never heard of before.
Ludicrous. Yeah. Their season's going nowhere fast. It's that old thing, we will not let it slip, lads. They've been terrible all season. They are not going to let that slip.
Although,
maintaining their standards.
The thing is, they might let it slip against us because this is a fixture for which they traditionally raise their game, it's fair to say.
True, they cup final.
Completely battered us last season. It was like we weren't even there. It was one of the two apotheosis of Moyes fixtures.
I can barely remember either game. I think it's like post-traumatic stress disorder or whatever, right? It's gone from, I get this horror flashback now and again and I wake up screaming, but aside from that, there's nothing there, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, so we'll see, but I can't imagine it's going to be as bad as that. I really hope Van Gaal goes back to playing four at the back and diamond midfield and all that stuff that works. It'd be really, really lovely if Di Maria's back for this one, which he might be. It'd also be really lovely if Falcao can play more than 20 minutes of this one, which I suspect he will be able to. Although there are some very difficult decisions to make, because Van Persie wasn't very good against Stoke, but he was excellent against Hull and probably his best game of the season, as we said, against Southampton. So I think he's going to play. Van Gaal's already said he's not dropping his captain, and Rooney's had one poor game after injury after a run of good fixtures, so it would both unlikely and seems unreasonable to drop him. So I guess those two are going to play. Be interesting to see if he once again leaves Herrera out of the side, because that would seem to me a really bizarre decision unless there has been some sort of personal falling out between them.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't see that really. Yeah, completely. So Rooney and Van Persie will play. The one option, if Falcao was to play, is that Rooney drops into the tip of a diamond midfield. I don't think that'll happen. Falcao's not fit enough to start. He'll be on the bench. Whether the diamond comes back in, I'm not sure. I don't think he'll start with the three. You're right there. It's not going to happen at Old Trafford, and there's very little need for it either. Certainly tactically, Liverpool don't play with an awful lot of width. So back four, it's going to be, and Carrick will sit in front of that. You can guarantee that one, and then the rest of it is a bit up in the air. Fellaini appears to start every game at the moment. Herrera doesn't matter in and out of the side. Valencia and Young, not sure what will happen with them. Depends whether Di Maria's back, and if Di Maria plays, then that might change up the system again, because he's not necessarily going to play in a diamond. So a lot of potential for change, both in personnel and in system for the Liverpool game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Di Maria's had most of his best games for United playing in that diamond, hasn't he? So we'd see with him on the left, Herrera on the right, Carrick at the base. I think you can drop Fellaini, but I suspect he won't. But I think it's sort of quite convenient potentially that Fellaini's just had a really poor game, because there's every reason to drop him. But I think Van Gaal does seem to be somewhat in this mindset of, oh yeah, big game, bigger team, better play Fellaini, which you suspect he might change over time. But we'll see. How do you think Liverpool are going to line up? Because I've got no real sense of their team's identity this season. They really seem to be struggling with that, something you don't expect of a Rodgers side.
Well, yeah, and that was the thing about Rodgers. Over the years, it always felt like he had a strategy, and he knew where he wanted his team to go, and he knew how he wanted it to be built, and their way of playing. And Suarez goes, and that's all disappeared, right? You know, they're switching their midfield up. They don't necessarily switch the tactics up, but Suarez and Sturridge being injured has completely changed everything for him. So Gerrard's in and out of the side, more out than in at the moment, and their performances are seriously inconsistent as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They've obviously missed Sturridge hugely as well as Suarez, haven't they? But he's another biscuit man, isn't he? So, talking of biscuit mans, what do you think our defence is going to be?
I've no idea. So we haven't got a right back, so Tony Valencia will play there. Let's assume it's a 4-4-2, so I guess Valencia, Smalling looks like he's injured, so Evans will have to play alongside Rojo and Young at left back. I mean, feels a mess, but Van Gaal's very reluctant to play Blackett at left back. Rojo could play there and Blackett come in, but Blackett hasn't had a game for a few weeks now, so I'm not sure I can answer your question. What about you? What do you think?
I think I just assume it's going to be Valencia, Evans, Rocco and Young. But of course, it's possible that Shaw or Raphael would be back. No, Shaw, they said he's out for the year, didn't they? So he definitely won't be back. So
until the new year, you mean? Not for a year. Let's not speculate.
No, yeah, sorry. Yeah. I don't want to do a Man United Twitter account.
No, quite. Well, you know, big question is where Sterling plays.
Yeah.
So he's been playing in a wide position the last few weeks, but he sometimes goes infield when Gerrard doesn't play. So
I hope Gerrard plays.
Yeah, well, you know, completely awful, isn't he? No mobility, which helps when we have Carrick in the team. Wonderful passer, mobility not his strong point.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, so Sterling will give Valencia or Young, either, depends on, you know, whatever side he plays, a really tough time for sure.
So let's predict an outcome for this game. I think given that we just can't stop winning, it doesn't really matter how we play, we just win. I'm going to predict a United win. I'm going to say we're going to beat them 3-1. Falcao with the emphatic final goal to make it 3-1.
Yeah, so I think United will have a reaction from the chaos that was the defence at Southampton. So
have a what? Sorry,
a reaction. A trainer-coach reaction. And I think the trainer-coach will tighten things up a little bit. So I'm going to go for a 1-0 win.
I like it. I mean, I'll be very happy with that. I mean, it starts to get really, really real if we win another couple of games on the bounce.
It really does, yeah. Aside from the 1-0 win, I should add that I hope Gerrard scores the last minute own goal.
Yes, that would be a delight.
It's a lovely way to cap off his career.
It would. So, a reminder that you get your answers of who's the biggest mug you've ever sat next to or behind or near in a football match.
And all those people who sit behind the bench, you know, all of those guys, you're not allowed to say Moyes.
I'm sorry to say again, it's Moyes. But yeah, they're really, really, really well worth winning. It's a lovely prize, and just put a hashtag Rantcast if you do the answer on Twitter, or email us at cast@unitedrant.co.uk.
No one's emailed us at that email address ever. You see, you know, the young people what listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Don't use email.
No, they don't. But we've had like 3, and they're all from people that say, look, I don't do Twitter. So I kind of mention it every now and again for people out there that don't. So yeah, a lovely, lovely prize for the United fan in your life, which, let's face it, is probably you. So get yourself a Christmas present if you don't win, and get yourself down to the German markets and get one, and then if you win the prize you can give it to somebody who supports United, and they'll be like, oh, what a lovely Christmas present, and all that sort of malarkey, or non-denominational winter festival of your choosing, of course.
Oh, happy holidays. I was in the States for a couple of weeks, and So, what does that mean exactly, happy holidays? But yeah, happy holidays it is.
Well, it's the holidays. It's the non-denominational winter festival holidays.
Yeah, but everyone gets a day off. A single day. That's it. Christmas Day. There's no holiday.
America, for many reasons that we won't go into this podcast, seems like a terrible, terrible place.
But funny thing is, we've made fun of MLS, haven't we, quite a few times? And
did you have a good time at the Sounders?
I had a great time at the Sounders. Very good atmosphere, just great all-round experience, really. Not least because you can drink beer while watching a game. So by the end of the match, I was thoroughly trashed. But I did enjoy the game thoroughly. I thought the Sounders were very unlucky. Lost on away goals in the end, so it was 2-1 on the night. A couple of goals coming in very short order before the half-time break. Robbie Keane was pretty rubbish all night.
Massive shout out to Portland, because we had a Rantcast listener who's very upset that we'd given some love to the Sounders. So we're neutral in the Seattle versus Portland wars.
Yeah, next time I'm in Portland, which is probably not anytime soon, but you never know. I will go and visit the Portland whatevers Timbers.
The Portland whatevers would be such a great name for an MLS franchise. So yeah, it's Manchester whatevers against Liverpool whatevers at the weekend. We're sorry about the crazy schedule. It's partly down to fixtures and partly down to producer Tom, who does such an incredible job of getting the Rantcast to you every week. His work thing's crazy, so we're not going to be able to record until midweek next week. So there's going to be another little gap. No Rantcast next Monday, but one at some point in between the Liverpool game and whoever we're playing after that game. So if you want to get hold of us between now and then, you can get me on Twitter at UTD Rantcast, get Ed at United Rant. Get us both at unitedrant.co.uk or facebook.com/UnitedRant. Read what I write on the Bleacher Report, read what Ed writes on United Rant, and leave us a review on iTunes if you would be so kind. I went and read a load of the reviews on iTunes today because I haven't done that for ages, and some absolutely lovely stuff. So a huge thanks from the bottom of my heart to everyone that said nice things about us on that. It makes all this worthwhile.
Very good. Thank you very much. Let's hope we're talking again, whatever time it is. When did you say we were recording? In a couple of years' time. Anyway, we'll have played Liverpool and beaten them by then, won't we?
Yeah, I hope so, as long as we continue to get lucky.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.